Hello ladies and gentlemen, TX141 here, also known as Paul, bringing you another Ace in a Day gameplay for the arcade mode of War Thunder. In today's instalment, we'll be reviewing the Messerschmitt 109 F-2, more formally known as the Bayerische Flugzeugwerke 900 Friedrich II. To give you a small historical overview on the plane, the Messerschmitt 109 F-2 was introduced in parallel with the 109 F-1. Both planes see an introduction in November 1940, with mainstream introduction to the Luftwaffe being in March and April of 1941. Both planes, the F-2 and the F-1, saw a number of reliability problems upon initial introduction, especially with regards to the tail section of the plane, whereby the tail section of the plane would completely shear off of the frame at high speed due to the build-up of resonances. This was countered in the end using external stiffening plates for the tail section, although a number of pilots lost their lives in the process of identifying this problem. The F-2 shared the exact same structure and frame as the F-1. Additionally, they both shared the Daimler-Benz 601N engine, due to lack of availability of the Daimler-Benz 601E engine at the time of introduction. The main difference between the two planes comes in terms of the armament, the F-2 possessing the same pair of 7.92mm machine guns above the prop, yet only one 15mm Mauser MG151 heavy machine gun in prop, by comparison with the 20mm MG FFM cannon of the F1. In addition to the standard F2 variant, a higher altitude nitrous oxide version known as the F2Z and a tropical out in the field version, the F2 Trop, were also introduced, but only in limited service, as the F2 gradually gave way to the F3 and the F4 in the latter half of 1941. So with our history lesson out of the way, how exactly does the F2 perform in War Thunder? Well, we can initially say that the armament, while it may seem a little bit lacklustre, is more than sufficient for catching those planes which are off guard. That P-38 Lightning being a prime example of how quickly we can dispatch an unaware foe with calm and cool efficiency. Additionally, as we swoop back round to hit this Messerschmitt 109 ML1, we'll see that the armament is sometimes a little bit just below the standard we're looking for. Our critical hit does enough damage to the right wing of the ML1, but as we descend onto the target, the ML1 manages to break away. So we descend onto this ML3 instead, with our very limited burst taking out their pilot, and therefore securing us our second kill. We continue on our run, aiming with this P-36C Curtiss Hawk, lining up our shot and making the most of our limited ammunition. Our critical hit soon turns into our third kill, as you'll see shortly. In the meantime, it's worth noting that while that P-400 managed to catch up with us, we're able to break away due to the awesome engine power and overall climb rate and efficiency of the plane in terms of breaking away from opponents. And that's one notable feature about the Messerschmitt 109 F2. It's something that's concurrent with the F1, your climb rate and your overall engine power. They both go hand in hand and enable you to break away from a number of opponents when and where necessary, without fear of retribution or retaliation. As the P-400 comes in for a head-on, we break up and over, coming around in order to secure a nice sustained burst on the enemy plane, waiting for the opportune moment. Our burst is enough to kill their pilot, and with our fourth kill in the bag, and a lot of space to manoeuvre, it's time to reflect on exactly how the F-2 can be beaten. As I've stated so far, the F-2 seems to work very well with its engine and climb rate. Ergo, you'd be right in assuming that the F-2 is a plane which loves to have a lot of speed behind it. So far I've shown you that every engagement I've been into has involved me being at a speed of 350 km or faster. That short burst on the Messerschmitt 110 was just to settle myself for another burst as I come round, and unfortunately only achieve a couple more hits, but then again that should be expected for our armament. With all this wonderful agility with speed, An F-2 can be quite easily beaten in my experience by simply forcing it to dogfight at speeds below 350 km an hour, as its turn rate, and indeed its overall agility, seems to fall apart. And so planes such as the Spitfire Mark V, planes that are the contemporary of the F-2, will find solace in the fact that if they keep the engagement slow and low, they'll quite easily take the F-2 out. And so it's your prerogative to always be in and out of the fight as fast as possible, and looking for sustained one-on-one passes when and where appropriate. As I gradually build my altitude back up and proceed over to the centre of the battlefield, in this airfield domination match on the map Berlin, it's time to review the setup we're using. A 30-minute fuel load which has been glitched to well over an hour, for no apparent reason. Additionally, we're using a 500 metre gun convergence with omni-purpose ammunition in the machine guns, and air target ammunition in our 15mm heavy machine gun, a combination which I found most effective out of all the different ammo types. As we can see here, we're climbing away and above the battlefield. As I go to turn around to attack that Messerschmitt 109E, they appear to have been killed or rammed by one of my fellow teammates. And so I keep surveying the battlefield, looking for an opportunity, and I notice it in the form of this Focke-Wulf 190 dead in front of me, who's isolated themselves up at higher altitudes. I gradually proceed over, knowing that as the Focke-Wulf 190 proceeds towards the airfield at A, there's a large number of enemy planes down there, and it might be the opportunity to perform a sweet boom and zoom run. The Focke-Wulf 190 is aware of my presence eventually, and descends into the foray, and so I decide very shortly to pursue, taking a more relaxed approach by coming up behind the tail of enemy planes and noting that Focke-Wulf 190A is actually trying to capture the airfield. I proceed to eliminate the target, achieving my 5th kill and just dodging our Beaufighter as they crash into the airfield. Again, coming out of that quite sharp dive, we're able to get away quite nicely with a speed of 550 km an hour, which gradually descends. For those wondering how the F-2 compares with its counterpart, the F-1, I would say that the F-2 is the slightly more agile plane. I'm not going by the in-game statistics, I'm simply going by my own experience. The F-2 feels a little less loaded in the nose, and as a result you're able to just outmaneuver some opponents which the F-1 may not. These opponents most notably being Typhoons and P-400s and Aerocobras. Additionally, the fact that you have 200 rounds in your heavy machine gun means you can afford to be a little bit more liberal in your use of ammunition in order to search for the sustained burst of fire that will take down your foe. Now it's at this point I'm having a dilemma. Do I pursue the Focke-Wulf 190A who's breaking onto my teammates, knowing full aware that the enemy spawn is in that direction, or do I proceed back towards friendly territory? I choose the latter simply because my own experience on this map, as this is the first time I played on the Berlin map, may prove to be my undoing. I notice a 109F just above me, an enemy one, and that they're going in the opposite direction. And so, having performed all my checks, I proceed back to our airfield at B and try to pick out another target. As I gradually make my way over, I notice the Junkers 87 seems to be quite alone and isolated, with their attention fully drawn towards my teammates rather than myself, so I go for the attack, setting on fire and killing their pilot to achieve my 6th kill. Excuse me. With the 6th kill in the bag, and this game looking to be near enough over in terms of the bars at the top of the screen, I gradually begin to turn around once again to come in for another pass on any enemy fighters that go to capture the airfield. Although very shortly the game ends, and so waving my wings and reflecting on the Survivor and Terror of the Sky rewards, it's time to review the stats of the match. So how did we do in that game? With 6 kills and 2 assists, it's truly worth realising the potential of the F-2. That if you can get it into a situation where you can perform a sustained burst, you'll probably take your opponent down, or at least grant yourself an assist. In terms of earnings, we earned exactly 24,000 silver lines, and just over 1,900 research points, with 761 of those going towards our research on the 109K4. This is with the 1.3 times event for the Guinness World Records event, so please consider that when reviewing these stats. If on reflection, I'd have to say that the F-2 is not the perfect plane. I would desire a much more powerful armament in the form of two 7.92s and one 20mm, although, for those looking for that, you've only got to wait to get round to the F-4. And really, the 109 F-2 acts as a brilliant trainer plane for getting used to the F-4, simply because the F-4 is an upgrade, possessing a more powerful engine and this change in armament. Ergo, the F-2 should be seen as a worthwhile challenge for both pilots new and old who want to get to grips with the Messerschmitt 109 F series, because in future instalments, the F4 and indeed the F4 Trop, you're going to be right at the top of your game, and this continues through to the later variants in terms of the G and Ks. Reflecting our stats with the team, we came first, but not by an incredible margin, we just made the most of what we've got. So, on that note, thank you for watching, ladies and gentlemen, and if you enjoyed the video, why not leave a like, comment or subscribe for future War Thunder videos on my channel. Until next time, ladies and gentlemen, take care and good luck in the skies!